So, where should I even begin? Made in Abyss is a very popular manga and anime series that on the first glance is just really adorable. It focuses on the main two characters essentially exploring this massive pit where the only way to go is down because, well, going up would literally kill them. And while the anime has a lot of really beautiful scenery and amazing drawing and art style, it can also get pretty dark. So at this point, you might be thinking, well, that's great, but why are you telling us all this? And those of you who know the anime probably already know all these things, so where am I going with this? Well, let me introduce you to Mine in Abyss, a Minecraft server that is literally made in Abyss, except just Minecraft remade. You can explore it, you can descend, and the Abyss remake is actually over, or I think almost, 7,000 blocks deep. As you can see, descending something like this could be a lot of fun, especially since it's multiplayer and I could run into other players. So, I decided, why the hell not? Let's have some fun. First, let's discuss some basics. So, the Mine Abyss server has everything you would expect. Going up from a certain depth will cause you harm. The deeper you are, the bigger is the strain of the curse. At first, going up will only give you hunger and maybe some slowness, but later on it can cause bleeding and can eventually even kill you. You've also got this handy little stamina bar that allows you to climb over things or safely descend down if you would need to be a little bit more careful. Also, when it comes to mining, ores don't naturally spawn, but whenever you break a block, there is a chance that ores will spawn around you. This essentially means that you can always find iron and stuff wherever it is, and you always have the guarantee that players haven't stolen all of it already. At the same time, however, the chances are pretty low, and the deeper you are in the abyss, well, the easier it is to find things like iron, diamonds, gold, whatever you might need. There are also these handy little checkpoints so that if you die, you just respawn at this little fireplace, but these are quite hard to come by and even harder to craft. To top it all off, there is also a plethora of monsters that have been just custom made for the Abyss. They are sort of what you'd expect from the anime, and if you've seen the anime, then you know that there are some really freaky creatures out there. So that certainly made me a little bit nervous. But there are also some craftable items that can help you along the way, though getting them is really difficult. And that is kind of it. That is all you need to know about the descent, so let's just see how it went. Humble beginnings were humble beginnings. I didn't have anything, and yet I was trying to climb down, and this place was heavily, and I mean heavily, influenced by player activity. Thanks to the placed cobblestone, I could always find some stairs, or somewhere to fall, somewhere to jump, and sometimes even unsecured chests, which gave me access to items every now and then that I could take, although I didn't exactly steal everything I could find, and that wasn't nailed down. Obviously, I knew that one of the biggest problems that I had to solve ASAP was hunger. Fortunately, I found this little farm, and although it has been highly looted, there could still be some crops found here and there. There's this little rule on the server that you should basically always replant what you harvest. Or you can just, right click to harvest it and it gets automatically replanted. Problem is that the beginner players weren't really doing that, so at first finding a farm that would be full of food was a little bit problematic. So in order to sort of compensate for that and show that I am a good player, a good newcomer, I just grabbed a stack of seeds and replanted them. After all, I was not in a rush, this place was mostly safe, and because of this little farm right here, I got the food I needed to continue my descent. There was a lot of bread and even some melon that I could make out of this. Say what you want though, but this was still Minecraft, so step 1 was to obtain some wood, craft some wooden tools, and then obtain some stone because, well, I would most definitely need those basic tools, if not just for mining, but also for fighting and defending myself. Thanks to the recipe book, I've also set my eyes on the first prize I wanted to make, the depth meter. The depth meter would essentially allow me to check how deep I was and how close I was to the edge of the abyss. However, there was a little bit of a problem. I needed glass, and sand was nowhere to be found, and I needed iron, which was also nowhere to be found on this layer. So that was more of a long-term goal rather than anything else. During the first few minutes, I found yet another farm, this time a much more supplied one, and I got myself really loads of bread. Not quite a whole stack yet, but I mean 51. Close enough. This was enough to supply me with food for a very long time, so there, that was one problem solved. I even went mining for a little bit, but since I was so close to the beginning, well, I couldn't really find any iron or anything like that. However, I did manage to get some stone, and that meant two things. First of all, a stone pickaxe, and second of all, a stone dagger. Now, many players were settling down, making little huts and villages to store their stuff, but I was willing to conquer this place without crafting a single chest. Just put everything in my inventory as I would need it and then toss it out if it was unnecessary. And boy, did I find a lot of stuff. Now, before we get any further, there is one more thing that is quite important and that I should mention. I was descending mostly thanks to roads that were created by other players. And those little bonfires that I could find along the road, well, they belonged to other explorers as well. Problem was that one bonfire could only be used for like 4 or 5 people at a time, so finding ones that would work as my respawn point and that wouldn't be occupied, yeah, that was another task. So that would make things a bit more complicated further down the road. I kept on slowly and steadily descending, finding notes of other explorers, and those notes were usually nice. And as I sort of kept going, I actually noticed something in the distance. That something was a structure, and a big structure, pretty much a hotel, built at the first layer of the abyss. And this is something that actually repeated itself quite a lot. Players weren't just descending down, they were building. And I was determined to discover the local culture, see some of the beautiful works of art that they've managed to create. Also, as you could see back there, I kind of ran into some sort of a critter, but, well, it was fortunately still peaceful. If there was one thing that I loved about the Abyss, then it was the view. I could just look down and see practically the entire, well, section of the map. You see, since Minecraft doesn't really support something as deep as the Abyss, once you would reach the end of the map, pretty much, the final depth, you would automatically be teleported to the next one. That will be important later. For now, I was just sticking to the staircases that the players made and just explored those little huts. So far, everything was going great. I found a little cobblestone staircase going all the way to the bottom, and this happened. My first death. Now, I was a bit disappointed, but you gotta give it to me, that was not my fault. I was just peacefully descending, but suddenly got teleported high up in the air. So, here's a little bit of advice. When you're about to cross into the next section, just cross it very carefully. But hey, at least I was learning. I decided to try again after a little bit of a rage quit, and well, as the resource pack got downloading, I found myself missing hearts and taking damage. And then I died and I figured out what killed me. A bird. A bird killed me just because I was just unavailable. Now, the bird, however, kept on flying around, and even though I had crafted shield earlier to protect myself, the server was lagging, and so was the bird. I did manage to get a few hits in, but as I just held my shield up, it managed to actually deal damage through the shield. It was incredibly hard to hit it because, well, you can see what was happening. I didn't even know where the bird was. So this was my first encounter with the local fauna, and god damn was it not a pleasant one. Eventually though, I did manage to best the bird, but with the server lag, it took me quite a while. One thing was clear now, the Abyss was not pulling its punches, and neither should I. So I crafted myself an iron dagger, and this was going to be quite more useful in the future. I already had an iron pickaxe for mining redstone and such, and the dagger would just make killing overall easier. Also, there was keep inventory on because, I mean, can you imagine just losing everything? So, yeah, I was off to a great start. This was, however, not the first time I would see the local fauna. I reached the hotel once again, and the place was really nice, but as I was thinking about going down, something rather unexpected happened. I was just browsing through the recipes and thinking, should I explore the hotel? And then bam! I got attacked by a mysterious blue bird, and oh my fucking god. I did not know what this thing was. It was definitely aggressive, and it dealt a lot of damage. The shield did manage to block a few attacks, but the bird was relentless, dealing like 3 hits of damage every time it got closer. I could not find an opening to attack back, and yeah, the Ciatoria killed me. And I was once again back at the respawn point. I was furious at this point. It was clear that the descent was not going to be easy. Not at all. And this was just layer 1. I barely managed to descend so far. Whatever awaited me at the very bottom? Now obviously I had to continue because heck, I wanted to get to the bottom of the abyss, and my second encounter with the bird went about the same way as before. I could not find an opening, it managed to make its way through my shield, and I was dead. Fortunately though, I did manage to find a respawn point that was a little bit closer this time, but still, I was making very little progress. Fortunately though, by the time I got back for the 3rd time, the bird was already gone. I thought that the hotel might actually have something in it, but it was just this big empty building, and as you can see, climbing up its stairs already made the curse settle in, taking a bit of my hunger. Now, that was still okay, but doing something like this on the lower layers, yeah, that would not be a good idea. If there was one thing I knew right now, then it was the fact that, well, I needed to look for more spawn points. Wherever there were any, I had to claim them. So for this reason, I decided to explore a bit, and another fucking bird came. I was not going to go back. I was not giving up. So I decided to fight this bird. It was no longer lagging, it was the weaker one, and I actually managed to slay it, and then quickly hid in the nearby shack to recuperate. It was not easy. These were probably the easiest enemies in the game, and I was still struggling with them. But at the very least, I did manage to kill one. I was improving. Slowly and steadily, but still improving. The Abyss very soon decided to test me again. The fauna on the first day of the climb was not so bad. On the second day though, yeah, that was different. But I finally figured out how the birds attack. They go high up in the air and then dive, and they are vulnerable when they are diving. And if you manage to hit them, you can kill them pretty easily. I was learning the patterns. It felt like I was playing Dark Souls again. And well, I was just exploring at this point, feeling a lot better about the current state of things. My exploration led me to many places, and one of the weirdest one was this Amogus shrine. Since there were quite a few of them in the Abyss, I decided to call these the remnants of the Sovereign of Sus. The Sovereign of Sus, whoever the person was, probably built many of these, all over the Abyss on different layers, since the Amogus figure, the little astronaut over there, was pretty much everywhere, all over the Abyss. And you're going to see him a lot in the future as well. For now though, this place was just a very nice farm where I could once again stock up on enough food to last me the entire trip down. Really good. Thank you, Sovereign. Now, maybe it was just me, but I soon realized that Traveling during nighttime was really uncomfortable. Not only was the place really dark, but also it felt like more monsters were spawning around. So I decided that every time it was night, I would just spend the time mining, trying to get more iron, trying to get better equipment, trying to essentially stock up on certain items. So that's what I did for most of the nights down in the abyss. It did not take long for me to reach the... Well, I'm not quite sure what to label it. I'm no abyss expert, but basically what seemed to be the first big changing point, the turning point of my adventure. The forest. The forest was very nice, with a few shacks here and there, but you could totally continue on deeper. I also found more of these birds, blue ones, brown ones, all sorts of ones, and sometimes they bugged, sometimes I managed to kill them, but most of the time they were just avoidable. But I wasn't going to stay in the forest, hell no, I was determined to keep on climbing and descending. Because, well, now things were finally going to get interesting. My descent was definitely eased a lot by the staircases other players have built, but at the same time the staircases were rather, how shall I put it, scary? Creepy? I guess that's one way to call them. Basically I found this one that was just literally going through the middle of the abyss. And I mean, just look at this. Nothingness all around me. Just little beams. Nowhere to catch myself, to break my fall. And just the walls of the abyss all around. This was a weird feeling, but whoever made these stairs definitely helped a lot. Eventually I once again crossed onto the next section of the abyss, and it seemed to be another forest, or a bit more of a jungle. The place definitely looked very nice, very lush, and I definitely liked it. But the climb was getting a bit more difficult. No direct pathways to take, just a few cobblestones here and there used by other adventurers to, well, safely descend. Then it was just down the trees and down a few leaves, and it wasn't so bad, but still, the climb was getting a bit more difficult, and I could tell. Also, the fauna started to change, I saw some weird birds flying around, and yeah, I was not going to fight another bird. Definitely not. Fortunately, there were a lot of checkpoints around, so I could just try my best to survive, but god damn was the fauna relentless, just trying to kill me every single time I just spotted them. Down on this layer, I found this little beautiful settlement. Nobody was around, but they had a very, very beautiful mine, and I thought, hell, let's have some fun. I went into the mine and just started mining, hoping to find some iron, and I've spent, I'm not kidding, over 40 minutes in here and found absolutely nothing. It was mostly coal and redstone, but no iron, a very little bit of gold, and that was it. So yeah, not exactly the best idea to go mining this close to the surface. However, that does not mean that all this mining was in vain. I actually managed to obtain some sand, which was necessary to craft glass, or smelt glass, and glass was necessary for the depth meter. So I was now one step closer to my goal. The only thing I would need now was iron to get a compass, and I already had redstone, and then I could just measure how deep I actually was. But, as I said before, iron was avoiding me, and really successfully. With the metal not mined and stuff not really smelted, I continued descending down. It was pretty much just a layer of lush green pastures upon another lush green pastures, and then in the very far distance of this place I could see something that I could probably label as an elevator? I was not quite sure, but I was determined to get there. And as I got closer, I actually noticed something that cheered me up a little bit. The climb was definitely not easy and with a lot of nasty fauna along the way, but as a beacon of hope, I saw on the horizon the Sus, the Sovereign of Sus, building yet another statue, guiding the players further into the depths of the abyss. And this place was actually really nice. It seemed as if someone really built this tiny little city here, and it was just so cool. It was like the place had its own culture. There were so many buildings just cluttered around. This was not just a settlement. This was a full-on city with bridges and walkways and farms. It looked alive, even though there was actually no other player around. It just seemed like a really nice place, and I was actually thinking about staying for a while, but the abyss called to me. I had to keep going. I had to see what was at the bottom. The next part itself, however, became quite creepy. Welcome to the inverted forest. Well, trees grow the other way around, upside down. The place is filled with walkways, is extremely dangerous, and a single flyby bird could knock you down into the depths. Yeah, this place was no joke, and without the walkways and paths built by other players, I would most definitely not be able to find my way around. I don't even know how they managed to survive here or build all this. Quite amazing. Eventually though, as I descended, I could see the bottom of the inverted forest and the beginning of, well, I'm not quite sure what, possibly another layer, but this place was essentially something that I called the Marble Pits. Because, well, it was just full of marble and white stone. Getting there, however, was a little bit problematic. I had to find another staircase, so I explored a bit, walked the walkways, watched where I could find something, and then I saw this little, I guess just massive spiraling staircase going all the way down. I saw it and thought, yeah, that is it. That is my way down. I have to say though that while the inverted forest was really creepy in its nature, this entire place was so beautifully constructed. I mean, there was actually like a safety railing so players wouldn't get knocked down so easily. There were bridges, and down there, look at it. Just a beautiful marble city. Just look at it, it was beautiful. Players were actually building here. This wasn't just a survival server. Players were making something. This place was alive, it had its culture, so to speak. But the spiraling staircase made my head spin, so let's not dwindle here. As I reached the bottom and, walked on the marble, I found yet another shrine to the Sovereign of Sus. That man was literally everywhere, and so were his shrines. And I also saw a really, really big marble staircase and thought, hey, that is my way down. Before heading there though, I decided to stick around and explore the place for a bit. I mean, it looked amazing. The staircase was a surefire way down, and oh my god, the buildings. This was literally like a beautiful, beautiful city. And then, well, I finally started heading down into the Great Vault. I was finally going to places that were much more dangerous. And this staircase, oh, thank God for anyone who built it, because, wow, it took me so much deeper, and it would have taken me ages to do so just going on foot and climbing on my own. So, thank you. Whoever made this staircase, thank you. Since it was nighttime when I reached the bottom of the stairs, I decided to go for a little bit of mining. And wow, the night was very productive. I finally found some more iron. And well, that only meant one thing. I was actually ready to smelt it along with the little bit of sand that I found in that previous area. And I had it. I had the depth meter. With this, I would actually be able to tell how deep in the abyss I was. This was crucial. But since I actually had a little bit of iron left over, I decided to make myself some iron leggings. The problem was that, well, the leggings didn't exactly look the most beautiful. So instead of iron pants, I just had a belt. But that did not really matter. I've had one of my goals completed, the depth meter, and with this I was able to tell that I was 2,607 blocks deep in the abyss. At that point, I had no idea how much deeper I could actually go. Well, I had some idea given the fact that I knew the anime and manga, but that still meant I had so much more to do and so many distances to go. So I headed off once again. It took me a while to reach the next segment of the abyss, and wow, I mean, wow. So it was really beautiful because there were a lot of walkways and a lot of constructions built in the middle of the abyss, in just the floating nothingness. There were also many staircases all around me, so this place seemed more like the explorers area. People weren't really going to stop here, they were just passing, and whoever was building here was making the path easier so that whatever was at the bottom was more easily reachable. The only question was, what was at the bottom? What awaited me on this layer? Since the route I took was a little bit unconventional, I had quite a hard time. You see, I abandoned the staircase and decided to instead scale the walls through the means of cobblestone and other little blocks that would be sticking out of the walls. The problem was, it wasn't exactly easy. You see, the difference between climbing down when you're in the forest area and this one is quite apparent. So this was a very, very slow progress, and I mean, holy crap, did it take a long time to finally find another staircase to go down. But fortunately, people were always making staircases. I guess it's just in our nature. And of course, it didn't take long and there was yet again another sign of the Sovereign of Sus. I mean, that guy was literally everywhere and it meant I was on the right track. He seemed to be leaving these behind on his way down, and honestly, I was going where he was going. And these staircases in this place were just amazing. They just led all the way down, and well, overall, they were just really well made. Long, without any breaks, without unnecessary spinning and turning that would make you dizzy. Just one long, perfect staircase. Even though it probably could have been wider and used some railing, the nervousness of being knocked down, that was quite present. Especially considering that for a very long time now, I was actually without a respawn point. So that was definitely going to be a bit problematic. Since it was already quite late in the night and I was getting very tired, I decided that I would continue tomorrow and just camp here, in the cave. I died before when I've been attacked by monsters that have, well, used the opportunity when I was loading in all the necessary resource packs, so I just boxed myself inside this little hole and hoped that nothing would make its way inside. Whether that would work or not, well, I would see the next day. The next day came and my climb continued. I quickly broke the rocks that used to seal me in here, and well, it was still dark. I mean, not in the real world anymore, but in the Minecraft one most definitely, and so I thought, nah, let's just do a little bit more mining. But then I noticed a tag. I didn't know if PvP was even enabled on this server. I very quickly took the iron I had been smelting, and it seemed like that guy literally just ran past me. I could see him, but I was too scared to approach. He seemed to have armor at the very least, or clothing. It was really hard to tell the difference with this resource pack, so I just crouched and quietly waited for him to leave. Morning came and it was time to continue, but that encounter was still sort of weighing heavily on me. I was not really sure what to expect. Now that I actually met someone, I kept asking myself, is there PvP? Is there not? Am I able to actually kill someone? Who knew, really? I for sure didn't, but for now the plan was to just avoid people. and enjoy the exploration as much as possible. And thankfully, people were always making stairs. And it didn't take long, and I actually reached another, well, I wanted to say inhabited base, but it really just wasn't. Just a few farms, sugarcane farm, which was the first one I've seen, and just overall a really nice place. Probably the best part of these adventures, however, were these sign walls. The sign walls were essentially sort of remnants of the people who have passed here, and this outpost, wow, it had stuff for potions, it had stuff for enchanting, it had everything, and many people used it according to the signs. So I thought, hey, why not enchant myself something? At first I thought that maybe I could enchant myself a knife, but the only thing I got from that was I think Bane of Arthropods or Unbreaking, and because I wasn't really doing that much fighting, it wasn't damaged in the first place. So instead I thought, hey, let's upgrade the iron pants that I've got, and I actually gave them protection. Although it wouldn't be that effective without at least a full set of armor, it wasn't so bad. And from the iron I mined last night, I've made myself a nice little helmet. So now I was at least somewhat more ready to conquer the abyss. Or so I at least thought. The delvers who have built this place, though, have been really awesome, because they actually marked the path down to layer 4. And that was great, but also slightly making me nervous. I knew that there were only 5 layers in total. I know that theoretically in the manga and anime there was also a 6th layer, but that one was apparently not even in the works yet. So 5 layers. And yet, I was nowhere near the end of my journey. I was wondering, how far could I go? What else could await me? And trust me, so many things could still await me. Now, do you remember when I was talking about me wondering what the hell would be at the bottom of this section, of this layer? Like, what could the players build there? What could be even nicer than the Marble City? Well, this. The City of Pixel Art. This was beautiful. This was actually an entrance point to the Goblet of Giants, which was pretty much the next big area. And the players here actually build so many beautiful structures. I felt like every time I reached the end of a layer, players would just go crazy with their builds, and this was an even more beautiful city than the last. I also saw the pixel art of Fabuta, which is a character from the 2nd season, and, well, overall, there was just a lot of pixel art all over this place, which is actually what made me call this Pixel Art Village. And you could probably see that little green window there. That was actually where I was supposed to go, or at least where I decided to go. There were so many ways in which I could just travel down, but that one seemed the most reliable. It really wasn't, but at least I thought so at first. As I descended, the server welcomed me to the Goblets of Giants, 4,000 blocks deep. Almost, at the very least. 3,842. Close enough. Now, the Goblet of Giants, you can imagine the goblets as these massive plants that hold water. And essentially, this city, the Pixel Art City, was all built atop of one such goblet. I decided to have a little walk around the city, and trust me, it was beautiful. I mean, just look at that. The players built that in survival, in the abyss. I mean, what a wonderful sight. I also found this little restaurant. It seemed like a fairly nice place, and it actually demanded a contribution of food if you decide to visit, so I left 1 stack of bread here because I already had enough. Then I decided to go upstairs because I forgot about the curse, and boy did it backfire. Here the curse was actually already quite bad. I was hearing voices, I was receiving damage, I was bleeding, slowed. Everything was really bad. So no going up the stairs. The restaurant just had to be here. And, well, then I decided to descend, and the goblets welcomed me. And if there ever was a more fucked up place, then I don't know what it was, because, man, the goblets were creepy. I could not see the walls at all, and what was the worst, or not really the worst, but the weirdest part, was that the goblets were actually a bit of a red herring. You could not jump into them to save yourself. The water would not save you. You would still take full damage. And the people, well, they've been colonizing the goblets, building all sorts of stuff all over them. So it was really just this big, endless city the further down I went. Really an interesting sight to behold. The creepiness of the place, however, well, that settled in very quickly. Just look at this. It was nighttime, it was dark. I had nowhere to mine and almost nowhere to go. I found a little beautiful building in the distance and decided, hey, maybe there is a way to get there. But still, that was a stretch. Also, my checkpoint was quite far and this place really scared me. So I just thought, hey, let's find ourselves a checkpoint. Probably in one of these buildings, right? Well, not really. Not that many people were willing to actually build one. They weren't easy to craft as you needed flint and steel, and well, getting flint, that was a different story altogether. And, well, I mean, this place was just creepy. Not all bridges were as beautiful as this one. Fortunately, I eventually found a place where I could set up a checkpoint and, well, explore the building, which was really wonderful. Around at this time, I also learned that somebody in the chat talked about the deepest point of the abyss, 6,600 blocks. Wow, I was like halfway there, which on one hand sounded amazing, on the other, 6,000 blocks. What I had walked in the past, I had to walk again, at least the same distance. I did not know if that was even possible. But then I found a blessing of the Sovereign of Rails, even though I didn't exactly call him that at this point yet. This little, I don't even know what to call it, spiraling staircase led deeper into the Goblets of Giants, and it proved to be quite reliable on getting around. But once again, it made me really dizzy. The journey here was difficult because I didn't really know where I was going. So when I saw this beautiful staircase in the distance, I thought, I have to get there. But I was already too much down and had to go up, which meant braving the curse of the abyss, which meant, according to the lore, bleeding out of every orifice in your body. In Minecraft it wasn't as vile as in the anime, but still, this did not feel very pleasant. Definitely longer climbs would be impossible. This staircase, man, it was a lifesaver. Whoever made it was definitely a great architect. I can't imagine how much time this must have taken in survival to build this. So many blocks, so much just architecture. And even though it looks relatively simple, you have to remember that in the beginning there's just a rocky wall, nothing else. So definitely a massive thank you to whoever built that. The staircase was a massive blessing in disguise. I actually made it to 4,600 blocks. I was just 2,000 blocks away now from actually finding my way, well, to the bottom of the abyss. And then I started hearing noises. Terrible noises. It was as if there was some enraged beast somewhere nearby. And, well, I couldn't really find it, but things were becoming very complicated. You see, this was a field of beautiful white flowers, and I actually remember this from the movie. And, well, I was not exactly calm when seeing this. To explain what was going on, basically, in the manga and in the movie, there were these bugs in the flowers that nested inside the bodies of, well, people. And I actually found the bug, and it attacked me. And before I could kill it, another one jumped on me, and yeah, these were not fun. And I was back at the top of the staircase, going down once again all the way from the Goblet of Giants. Eventually I did manage to avoid the bugs though, and kept going down the stairs when I heard this weird noise, so I went to check on where it was coming from. Yeah, and that white thing down there? Yep, that's the orb piercer. This adorable looking fuzzy creature with sharp spikes that caused this. Yeah, that scene is going to haunt me for the rest of my life. I knew pretty much two things about them. First, that they are very well capable of killing me, and second of all, that they have a very, very deadly poison. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to be as deadly in the Minecraft version as it was in the manga, but I was definitely not willing to try it. So I just kept on going and killed some harmless critter and harvested its body parts or whatever. You know, just the classic descent. As I kept on going and I reached like another platform, I decided to look for another place that might have a respawn point, and then I found this. Another sign. We have decided to essentially, well, return to the surface. That was pretty much a goodbye letter. Whoever made it down here, whoever built this beautiful cottage, they decided to pretty much commit the game version of, well, suicide. They just removed their spawn point, died, and returned back to Earth to restart their adventure. And man, at this point, the horror of the abyss kinda started to sink in. This was no longer the happy place of the surface. This was way darker. The next day, I just continued where I left off. This was, well, an interesting journey, and it was just getting darker, and, well, ice was also starting to appear along the way, and that only meant that I was actually getting closer and closer and closer to, well, the fifth layer, and to the Sea of Corpses, which was supposed to be my final destination. It seemed really scary at first, but hey, that was all part of the adventure, and I was not going to stop till I reached the very bottom. This place was also where the climb got increasingly more and more difficult. You see, I was kinda trying to go down a, well, curved ceiling, so to speak. The ceiling of the cave, I mean. And, well, there were no stairs, there were birds flying around. It was starting to get a lot more difficult, and so I, for the first time, decided to be just like everyone else. Make my own staircase. And then, during my travels, bam! I found diamonds. Only 2 of them, but 2 diamonds could still be very useful. So you can bet I was just super enthusiastic on getting them, so I just decided, what else should I do than just jump down? I was lucky to survive. I mean, it took only 4 hearts, but still. I probably shouldn't be risking it like that, especially with a respawn point so far away, back at the Goblet of Giants. So, yeah. But I did have the diamonds, and that meant crafting time. With them, I actually crafted a diamond sword, or more specifically, a diamond dagger. I figured that if I'm going all the way down, now is probably the best time to just gear up. So that was what I did, and I just kept on going and hoping that somebody made the staircase all the way down, because, well, going there myself. Now, I did manage to find somewhat of a staircase, but it still meant that I had to descend down on this massive spike of ice. And this was creepy. I mean, it was, first of all, very dark. Second of all, the spikes were slippery, so I just thought, hey, now something's gonna hit me and I'm gonna slide right off. And, well, yeah, It was not a pleasant experience, but I was now at the depth of 5,000 blocks, 1,600 to go. I could make it. I felt my goal so close. So no giving up and climbing down. Let me tell you right away that this was probably the worst part of the climb. I did not know where to go, and most of it was through ice. It was dark as well. I did not enjoy it. But then I found this railway going down, and I thought, hey, if I follow it, it will most likely end at some sort of a settlement. And so once again, for the second time, I followed the blessing of the Sovereign of Rails. And trust me, this was not the first time I would meet him, and I would actually even get to meet him in person. Eventually, my goal started to appear in front of my eyes, and through this little gap I was actually able to see it much more clearly. That was the Sea of Corpses. I actually made it, and I slowly started to think, yeah, that makes sense. The Sea of Corpses, that is the final frontier. You can't really go under the sea, or so I thought. And I began traveling, and this entire place was just super dark, super creepy. The ice made it feel all rigid and cold and hostile, and well, it was, most definitely. The fauna spawning in the water, oh, they were no joke. But that was all still in the near future. For now, I just kept on following the rails, hoping they would lead me to salvation. Now, since I didn't have chat enabled, I didn't see these messages maybe earlier, but as I progressed further down, I saw this. PvP always enabled below this point. And to be honest, that scared me shitless, because now it meant that players would be the biggest threat. Other delvers. And given what I knew about the residents of the Sea of Corpses, I was not really looking forward to meeting them. Eventually though, I did manage to find my way down, and just as I expected, there was actually a settlement with respawn points. And more than that, there was another wall. And wow, there were so many names here. I definitely wasn't the first one to go down this way and to be led to safety by the Sovereign of the Rails. Wow, this was quite something. But now there was a new question. Here's the sea, and this is definitely not the end. So, where should I go now? I figured that perhaps the best way to get around would be via a boat. And there was this little, I don't know, a whirlpool in the sea, and I was kind of thinking, hey, maybe we should go there. We have a respawn point nearby, just try it. But I just got too scared. Nevertheless, I did steal the boat, and I went for a little bit of a joyride on the sea. And let me tell you right away, it was awesome. I could see all the way down. I could see beautiful underwater structures. It was amazing. It was wonderful. It was everything I imagined it to be. But then I saw the path of the Sovereign of Rails leading further down. And that meant only one thing. The deepest point was yet to be reached. And so I followed it, eagerly awaiting another 1,000 blocks of climbing because I was nowhere near the bottom. Oh, no. But just like in Made in Abyss, the bad stuff always follows you around. I was just going down the rails, not really expecting anything, when bam, an orb piercer spawned very close. I thought maybe it wouldn't notice me, and then it started tossing its sharp darts. And I remembered what one of them was able to cause, and that was scary. So I thought, hey, he's trapped under the bridge, and wow, it was fast. It was faster than me, it was just following me. I was hoping, do not get hit, let's just get out of here. It swam up ahead, I was literally scared shitless. It was intense, and maybe it was a bit intensified because of what I saw in the anime, but still, I tried carefully approaching it, but I didn't exactly know where it was, and then I started getting hit. But not by an orb weaver, by something else. I tried moving forward, I was already waiting at the shore, and the birds were after me. This was a cooperation of the fauna. It was deadly, it was incredible, it irritated me. And now it meant that I couldn't follow the rails just blindly. The orc piercer was there. I needed a different boat, and I had to be a bit smarter about this. I took the boat to the very end of the shore, and, well, I was being followed by a flock. The problem was, this place was incredibly hostile, and I mean incredibly. I tried running away, and then I saw another critter. Maybe it was harmless, but it scared me, so I just kept on running. And then I saw the bug, and I was like, no, I don't want to die, so I just kept on running, not turning back, running alongside the shore, along the ice, just following a trail of torches like it was the last light in the world. It was rough, it was scary, and it was most definitely the abyss. This was a really interesting feeling that is very hard to capture into words, but yeah, for that time I was just running, escaping, and focusing on healing back to my full health. When things calmed down a bit, for a moment I thought myself lost. I didn't know how to go deeper, and then I saw the railways, the main railways, the magnum opus of the Sovereign of Rails. This was the way past the sea. I did a little bit of mining, and yeah, as well as fighting. I also died to a bug, I think. But fortunately, I had my spawn point set, so that was cool, and I actually took my revenge on the bug, which was even better. I was getting stronger, and that was a great feeling. But still, 1,000 blocks ahead of me, would I be able to make it without, well, further complications? The railway was long, and I mean very long. I don't remember how much time I've spent going down that path, but without a minecart, wow, it took ages. So yeah, that was definitely incredibly scary, but then I reached the city underneath the waves, and that was beautiful. The place was amazing and, well, kind of scary. Everything was dark at this point. The light wasn't just reaching this place, so it wasn't exactly the beautiful part of the abyss, more like the one where you actually feel like it is the abyss for a reason. Then I saw something really interesting. This little, well, it actually looked like a grave, but it was more like a wish for a good journey or a blessing. I called the author of this the Sovereign of Blessings, and that was probably another great landmark. Not even the Sovereign of Sus had dared to venture this deep. His statues were nowhere to be found, and so the Sovereign of Blessings was my new light in the darkness. He, along the rails one, were guiding me, and the depth, well, 900 more blocks to go. I was almost there. Almost there. Now, do you remember when I told you earlier that we were going to actually meet the Sovereign of Rails? Well, I did end up running into someone, or I just heard someone mining nearby, and since, well, PvP was enabled, I didn't want to exactly end up as a cartridge. If you know what I'm talking about, if you don't worry about it. So I just kinda panicked. I tried to hide, I couldn't see anyone's name tags. I was just worried that somebody's going to ambush me from the shadows, so I hid, I stayed hidden, and I even tried mining around, but, well, no. I didn't find anyone exactly, but I did find someone who responded to my message in the chat. That someone was Redleaf, a fellow Black Whistle, and the one that I've dubbed the Sovereign of Rails, because, well, he lived near the rails. Maybe he wasn't the author, but still, he probably should be a sovereign of something living in such a hostile place. The descent down the rail system was incredibly lengthy, but eventually I found another sign of the Sovereign of Blessings. And man, I actually even wanted to leave like a flower nearby, but I couldn't, it was protected. And also, that wasn't really a flower. But yeah, there was just another part of the sea. The sea had layers, and this place was completely frozen. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I was already told that Edo Front, the big fortress, the big bad fortress, was not in the game on the server. So that calmed me down a little bit, but still didn't prevent me from exploring a little bit, looking for perhaps a better way down than just going through an endless tunnel full of rails. I quickly gave up on that though. 500 blocks more. I was so close. And then I finally reached it, the ending point for the rails. I sent my thanks to the Sovereign and, well, now it was all just about traveling further. My checkpoint was nowhere to be seen. I mean, I don't even remember where I saved last. I was just, well, kinda screwed. There was a tiny house, but no respawn point, and the only way down was, well, down. It wasn't exactly a difficult climb, but I mean, just look at this. These massive, spiraling chunks of ice, darkness, wherever you could just lay your eyes. It was crazy, but still, 200 blocks more. I was so close. If the beginning of my journey was peaceful, this was stressful. I did not know what type of fauna was harmless and what wasn't, but I decided to not test it. Also, the entire place just felt cold. There were no buildings, no cobblestone, no nothing. I felt like I was charting the way, and, well, that scared me. So when I finally found signs of civilization after, I don't know, 100 or so blocks of climbing, I was ecstatic. But still, avoiding the fauna, not really easy. Eventually, I found the city at the bottom. Yep, this was, well, theoretically not the city at the bottom, but, I mean, just look at this beauty. Look how wonderful this place looked. And as far as I was concerned, this was actually the city at the very bottom. There was nowhere else to go. This was the bottom of the Sea of Corpses, a dark and hostile place with perpetual night, where basically the only source of light were these little lamps. It did not feel very cozy, but, well, what else could I do? I've made this place my home, set up a respawn point, and then I thought to myself, hey, there are still some structures underneath the water, and I mean, there has to be the void somewhere, right? Like the edge of the map, the very end. I want to see that. I want to figure out if someone's been there, and I want to see it with my very own eyes. I explored the place looking for any way down, really, and almost by accident, I stumbled upon a staircase. A very long staircase going down. Whatever was at the bottom, that had to be the bottom. The very bottom of the abyss. I was nervous, but at the same time, surprisingly calm. Down here, there were no creatures, really. It was just endless darkness and loneliness wherever I would look. And then I found, finally, the way out. The darkness was practically unbearable at this point, and yet the road seemed to continue. After making it deep under the sea through a series of tunnels, I finally came across this weird glass house, and this was apparently supposed to be like the final dive, the final destination, the place where everything would die, but no, not yet. There was still a little bit more to see, and a little bit more to surprise me. The creepiest thing about this whole place, though, was this wall, congratulating all those who have made it here and, well, telling them that nothing else really awaited them. This was the end, but it was more like death, just nothingness. And yet, the place had a staircase going even deeper. I did not know what could be at the end. I knew that the map simply did not continue. The entire abyss just ended, yet the players kept on building. And at the end, I saw this little platform with houses and thought, somebody actually built this far down? I was almost 300 blocks over the actual end of the map. Somebody actually went even deeper. And that both scared me and kinda, I don't know, made me happy. This was very much what players would do. They would keep on building, even if you told them that this was the end of the world and there was nothing to see, somebody would always build something. It was a testament to the creativity of mankind, or, just an attempt to make the final destination. And, well, then I found the final den of signs. This was the darkest corner of the abyss. Nowhere to go. Going up from this point would certainly kill you. And, well, this sign struck me probably the hardest. May you find more peace in that world than in this one. Ah, man, this truly felt like, well, the end of the journey. I had nothing else left, and to be honest, I felt kinda hollow, pun intended. After going deeper and deeper for so long, reaching the depth of almost 7,000 blocks, I was at the end. And there was nothing but a bunch of huts, endless darkness, and, well, death. As well as signs that clearly made it seem like the people who have made it here have lost pieces of their sanity along the way. But everything just felt very much like the abyss. The atmosphere of the place was simply incredible. And so ended my journey down to the bottom of Mining Abyss. And I have to say, this server definitely has to be among my most favorites. I think the concept itself is really unique. Just a game or a map that is all about going deeper and deeper down. And even though I didn't exactly explore that much, I still felt like I've seen a lot. There were many villages, many cities, and so much that the players have built. The map was beautiful, yet eerie and creepy, and although it started like a really nice adventure with lush forests, it ended up in a very dark and hostile place. It quite literally felt like what the manga was like. At first, it was all cheerful, and then it turned darker and gloomier as the main protagonists went further. And wow, I recommend every single one of you to go and try it yourselves. Maybe the place changed since I was there. Maybe the cities aren't there anymore, or maybe there is already a sixth layer. Who knows? Either way, this was an amazing journey, and thank you for joining me on it. And I hope that one day you may join me again, perhaps on a different one. See you until then.